Okay, so welcome back, guys. Today I am joined with someone that I haven't seen her face for a few years. We were just saying how long it's been, and we used to work together, and that is Kelly Du Preez. Have I said that right?
You have? Yep,
Yeah.
that's
I
it.
was thinking, I said it out loud to myself. I was like, did that sound right? But I wanted Kel to come on the show because she's a listener of the Modern Leader podcast,
I love it.
brilliant. And B, she has just taken a year or so out to be off work with the family and travel the world. And I just thought, oh my God, I need to hear about this. And why the hell not record it for the podcast? So I have a willing volunteer here to roll with that, and let's see how this conversation goes. So Kel and I used to work together in reinsurance at Swiss Re, back in claims. I was in claims. I don't know. I think it was about 2014 I left claims. 'Cause that's 10 years ago, which is crazy.
It
Um,
is.
and I know you stayed for a few more years, but why don't you just give a bit of an introduction before we get into the conversation? Bit of an introduction because they're going to recognize the Aussie accent. You're now living in Brittany in France. So tell us a little bit about who is Kel and how you got there.
Well, first of all, it's just wonderful to see your face too, and to remember those first days when I arrived at Swiss Re, and 10 years later, here I am.
Crazy.
Yeah, so I suppose where do we begin? I'm sitting here talking to you from Brittany in France, which is a long way from where we met and where I've been for um, which has been having quite an incredible experience traveling the world with my
Mm.
family, with two young kids and my husband. Um, and I suppose before that, my world was working in claims, in reinsurance and insurance. My background is in health. So I began my working life as a physiotherapist, but found my way to the world of insurance, and loved it, and have held sort of a number of roles over those years. So working my way up, but then deciding to do something pretty different.
Right, so let's dive in there because I want to know. So is it Jerome, your husband? I
Yes.
got that right. I remember that right. And what's your kids' names and how old are they? Tell me, because I bet I'll be.
So I've got Eva and Louis. Eva is 9
Oh my God.
and Louis is 6.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay. All right. So it has been a while. Because I think you must have been. So you must have been pregnant with Louis then when I left Swiss Re, 'cause that was
Yes.
6.5 years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So what? Like, how did this come about? Like, what conversations were you and Jerome having over the dinner table that meant this even came into your sphere of awareness that you could do this?
So I think, like many a person, I would suppose, with the pandemic, that was a point where the world changed dramatically.
Yeah.
And obviously it was challenging, but it also gave us pause to look at how we were living our life. In some ways, we were together more and we had more time together. And it gave us, I think, the space to have some of these conversations
Yeah.
and examine our lives a little bit. And I know I'm not alone. I know there's been a bit of a tidal wave of people looking at their lives and making these sorts of decisions. So for us, it was looking at, well, we recognized, I think, we were a bit stuck in the life that we were living. We both had great jobs. We had a house in London. There were many aspects of our life which were really lucky, and amazing, but it wasn't necessarily the secret to happiness, I think, for us.
Mm.
So that was, we basically, it happened very quickly. We sat down,
Wow,
we had
really?
a conversation. We both loved traveling and thought we might do it one day. And we just thought, well, what would it take to actually make it happen? It turns out, actually, you quit your job, you put your house on the market, you rent your house, you pack your bags and you go. It's actually easier
Wow.
than you think to do.
Yeah. But you say it's easy, but were there wobbles? Like, were there like doubts and fears that came up? Or do you think you were just like in the romance of it all and like the yes, let's do this?
I think so. Actually, no. So in my life, I will look at, as a claims person, you look at risks and all of that sort of thing. But for us, when we made the decision, it just felt right.
Oh my
I
god.
think we just knew we needed to change something, and I think it's really hard to do that when you're still stuck doing what you were doing, even though we were happy doing what we were doing, I
Yeah.
suppose, which
Yeah.
was great, but life wasn't quite there. So no, it felt good. And then I think you put your energy into making it happen, um, and you can.
Amazing. So were work surprised?
I think so. Um, I think, yeah, I think so. I guess, but I think at the same time, probably aware that when you're someone who perhaps is originally from another country, having gone through the pandemic, it probably wasn't overly surprising in that
And
respect, I guess.
so whereabouts in Australia are you from? Remind me.
I'm from Brisbane.
Yeah. Okay. And Jerome is French, right? So
Yes.
so he
Yeah.
grew up. Did he grow up where
We
you
grew
are
up in
now?
France. Yep. We met in London and then have been together for 20 years in London. So
Wow.
I'm Australian, but London was home as
Yeah.
well.
Amazing.
Yep.
Okay, so you kind of had this. You went out on a high by the sounds of it,
Yeah.
which is amazing, and you had an amazing career. And it's very similar to mine, right? I wasn't like unhappy in my job. I just there was something that was like I've worked so hard for this, and this doesn't feel like it's all it cracked up to be.
Yep.
And there's like more, and you start to look at how you want to feel, and you want to, like, for me it was the feeling of like just being a little bit more free to do what I wanted when I wanted to, like explore a more creative side of me, and that kind of thing. So I totally get it, and I love that you went out on a high because it's a positive story to tell, and it's also when you look to go back into the workplace, which we'll get onto, it's like also a really good place to, it's a good story to tell, right? In terms of like why you're going looking back for work, for example. So
I think I think also it's that happiness is lots of different things. And I
yes,
think our
yeah,
work buckets were full, but there were other aspects of our life which weren't.
yeah,
That's what the trip was about, actually.
amazing. So did you plan it all out? Like we're gonna go here, then here, then here, then here, and book it all, or did you have some spontaneity and flexibility in there?
So we had the big lines. So we had the sort of the periods of time we wanted to be in each place. And and I think having been international people living in the UK, we actually were fortunate to have friends in different places around the world. So that sort of formed the skeleton of our
Mhm.
trip. Um, but once we had that in place, actually, and the wonderful thing was it wasn't planning too far ahead. It was seeing what was working, where we wanted to be, and being open to opportunity. So yeah, not a huge amount of planning.
Oh my god. And sorry about this cough. If I go into a coughing fit, I might mute myself, so just ignore that and carry on. But I've had it for about 8 weeks now. It's doing my
Oh
head.
no,
Um, where was I going with that? So tell us then what your itinerary looked like in the end. Like in hindsight, where did you go? What did you do? Like
going to make
tell
you
us some of
jealous
the
now.
highlights. Oh yeah, I know. You are. You already
So
are.
we had we basically followed the sun for a year. So we had a summer in Europe. We spent the theme was really spending time with family and friends, and in nature. So we had about a month in France. We then hired a camper van and traveled through France and into Spain,
Amazing.
which was amazing. Then we went to Bali for 3 months.
Wow.
Then yeah, it was really tough. Then on to Australia for 3 months, where we stayed with my family, but also visited friends all over the place and camped and um, just spent time really. And then found our way back to Europe. Spent some time in London, seeing our friends and colleagues in London, and then made the decision that we weren't going to go back to London, that we would pivot and go to France.
Wow.
Yeah.
And And had you'd obviously had a taste of France before this, but
Yes.
was it spending that length of time there and just, like, feeling into what the difference is, I guess, between London life and Brittany life that made you go, "Yeah, that's it's a no-brainer," or
Yeah, I think, so I know France very well, but it's very different living in a place than visiting a place on holiday. Um, I think what we were clearer about were what our drivers were. So what did we want to change in life? And coming to France has been one of those things from a family and friends perspective where we've we're in the right place now for family and friends at this time in our lives. And actually, when you look at it from that perspective, then what you do is you start to look, well, work we'll find the work that works for us to support this lifestyle. So that's sort of, I guess, the approach that we've taken. It's been pretty interesting getting to grips with living in France, though. So
yeah, I bet. So the
I'm an
language for
expert.
one.
Language for one. So I am much more fluent now than I was 6 months ago,
That's pretty
um,
impressive. 6
which
months?
is amazing.
At
Yep.
our
So
age, you know, it's not so easy to take it on apparently.
yes, it's like, they always pick me out pretty quickly that I am not French, but they continue speaking French and we can carry on a conversation. So from a learning perspective, like, it's pretty amazing. I've certainly built some new connections in the brain. Um, I understand the French bureaucratic system now as well. I could fill in a form or two.
Oh my
Uh,
goodness.
but no, it's from a quality of life perspective, it's a wonderful place to be. We're in Brittany, we're by the sea. Like you, I love being by the sea. It's something that makes me happy.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
And did you
we're
discover
just
that
naturally more active.
I mean, you're Aussie, right? So Aussies like
Yeah,
their beaches, but
exactly.
did you rediscover that on your little
Yes. Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
it's wonderful. It's what should we do this weekend instead of, driving for an hour and a half out of London to try and find something. Um, we drive 10 minutes down the road and have a swim in the sea. So, yeah.
Amazing. And how the kids like, they must just do they know how lucky they are?
Ah, that's it. No, I think that's always the case with kids. They never quite know how lucky they are. No, I mean, and to be frank, it's not been the easiest of things to do with kids.
Yeah.
So interestingly, my kids have two different characters. So my daughter is very extroverted, and she has flourished. She's now fluent in French and she's doing theatre and dance and all sorts. So she's really thriving. And my son is more introverted and he'd never been to school. So his first
Oh, of
experience
course. Yeah,
school
wow.
was in France. So it's
Oh,
been a bit of a longer haul for him, but 6 months later, and it's just clicked.
oh,
And
well,
yeah,
that
and
must be a
it's
relief.
going good guns now.
Oh, that's so
Yeah,
cute. And oh my God, to like just to have that fluency in another language,
yeah.
especially being what nationality would you call them? Or would they call themselves
That
when
so
in
they
London?
they're a proper mixed bag. Home for them is London
Yeah.
still, so they're British, but they know that they're Australian and French as well.
I love that.
They're a mixed bag.
It's so exotic. It's not like me,
It is
born and bred in Dover to 2 parents born and bred in Dover. It's like doesn't
a
compare.
lovely place to be from, Dover, though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it has its places for sure. I found them
yeah.
all. Um, so yeah, school and all that. Um, so what was I gonna say? I had something on my tip of my tongue as you were talking. Um, were they sad to leave their schools? Oh, I suppose it was only Eva that was in school then.
Yeah, not yeah, I think they were excited by the trip. I
Yeah.
think not coming back home, took a bit of adjusting
Did
for
they
them.
comprehend that beforehand though?
No, I think until it's real, you can't comprehend that
Yeah.
sort of thing. But I think, there's so many positives to the change in lifestyle that's really helped them to adapt. And as everyone says, kids are so adaptable, but it's not necessarily easy, that adaptation. So I think it's if you'd asked me this 3 months ago, I would have had a not a negative answer, but it would have been much more of a challenging
Yeah.
situation. Now I see them, and they've managed to come through that, and they've built up friends as they do, and they've got a life now. So uh, Yeah, they're
Amazing.
incredible.
And like, if you could, like, how would you describe the kind of energy around how you move through life now, if that makes sense, compared to before? If-
So I I I've had the opportunity to, I think, be much more thoughtful
Hmm.
about what I want. And I know this is perhaps it's a bit of a common I want to use a French word here, faiblesse, but it's a it's a common challenge for women, I would say, that we tend to, or some people tend to put everyone else first before you put yourself first. And I think I've seen how much better I feel putting some of these important pieces into place. Like exercising, I'm exercising more. I've thought more about how we eat as a family. I've been listening to your podcasts, these sorts of things which help you actually think about what it is you really want and working towards that. So I think that's definitely colouring how I start to look now at returning to the workplace.
Mm. So, on that note, how has your requirements for a job changed?
So I think it's become clearer to me it's not so much about the status or what the job pays, but actually trying to find something that's going to help me build towards a career, whether it's in the same domain or maybe a slightly different one. So I'm more open now to where I might end up. But that's tapping into what I really enjoy and what I love doing. And that's working with people, doing something that actually helps make people healthier, live better lives, have a positive impact on their lives. And I think it's a pretty exciting time for those sorts of roles. So I'm spending a bit of time seeing what's going on in the world of work via LinkedIn and listening to podcasts and various things. And I can see there's definitely momentum in the space of helping us all to perhaps change the way that we live our lives, to eat healthier, to move more, all of those sorts of things, and also to be better in the workplace. And I think it's a pretty challenging time to achieve all of those things as well, because I think the reality of the world right now is quite intense, actually.
Mm. Yeah, intense is one word, hey.
Yeah,
And at the same time, you've achieved all of those things, right? You are the living, breathing embodiment of everything that you've just said you want to help other people with. And I think this is where we get to, is when we've mastered something ourselves, we want to share it with other people, right? It's like for me, I'm like sat here now in my camper van looking out over the sea, and like we'll go for a second walk on the beach, and like that's the lifestyle I've created for myself. And I want others to go, you can have the career and create these things on your own terms. And actually, as you've just said, like that success factor, like we find ourselves you and interestingly, you started in health, right? And
yeah,
actually where you're ending up is a healthier version of yourself, a healthier family, a healthier lifestyle, and you still want to help other people do that. So I think that's
yeah,
beautiful because you kind of had to go away to come back to actually your roots, which shows you were onto something in the first place. Um, and yeah, we want to kind of spread that word and get it out there. And for me, it is like you like look at your definition of success because I know mine was based on my parents' kind of real values of financial security, get a job for life, pay into a pension, work your way up the ladder, be on time and never late, and all these things, which are lovely values to have in myself. But actually, when I took a step back, were not really my definition of success and actually looks very different. So I know another thing that you and I connect on now, more so than ever, is like the love of nature, right? And I remember when I first left Swiss Re, I didn't have a dog, but I was like, I want to walk more. I want to go out and walk and explore my neighborhood. And like the roads I explored and went up that I didn't even knew existed, and the parks that I walked through, and the trees that I saw for the first time, and the birds that I heard, all these things, I was like, am I like, I just experiencing a whole nother reality that I think when I was in that, let's just call it the rat race, right? Just in that tunnel vision, we're on a mission, we eat, sleep, work, repeat. Um, we're in it. We don't see all these other things around us, and actually, it's just having that. I guess being able to exhale and then take a deep breath and take in our surroundings, and then choosing where we spend that time. Because I know I choose to be by the sea or be in the woods or whatever if I can, when I can. And I guess being restricted to an office meant that that wasn't even an option for me. But I've created it as a working thing now. Um, so talk to me about nature and what you've like rediscovered, I guess, because I'm sure that's always been there as well, especially being an Aussie, right?
Yeah, well, I think it's making you feel better without even trying. I think that's the thing. You just feel better when you are exposed to nature, and it's easy. And I think that's the thing. When you are busy, you're working, you might have kids, you there's a lot going on. Um, I think making nature accessible is the thing. So I guess for us, we've spent, I would say, 80% of our time outdoors in the last year. Like we've just lived outside. And I think our kids are happier, we're more relaxed. And that makes other things easier. You make better decisions. There's more calmness in your family. And I know I need to be physically active. So combining the two, I think, is amazing.
Mm,
But I love the sea. I'm like you. I love the sea. And having lived over in Europe for many years, it's not a warm sea. So I've just not really participated. But the thing I did when we moved to Van is I bought myself a really good wetsuit
cute. Wise.
and went in the sea and got the same enjoyment that I would have diving into a warm sea in Australia here. And that's just so exciting.
Yeah,
So
I
a
love
little
it.
bit chilly for me right now. I'm
Yeah,
not quite as brave as you, but
yeah.
I
Well,
can't
even though I
wait.
haven't been in for a while.
Yeah,
I looked at it today and thought, oh, actually. So I've asked a friend if she fancies going at the weekend. I'm not quite brave to go in on my own again for the first time in a few weeks, a few
yeah,
months. But yeah, I love that.
yeah,
And like for me, last year was like a real, like I call it my rewilding year because it was like I was like coming every day. I was coming to this spot every day, and I was going in that beach that I could see. And sometimes the waves, like someone said to me this one time, like, "Are you going in?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I was like, yeah, get me. I'm like brave. And I'm going in
Wonderful.
and I'm like, I'm facing these waves crashing down at me. And I'm like, no, I'm powerful. Like, not from a ridiculously, risky point of view, but it's just like, it felt like I was in it and I was like as powerful as it, as crazy
Yeah,
as that sounds. And I bet
yeah.
on, so is it West Coast that
It's
you're
West
on?
Coast. Yeah,
So
that
that
is
gets
correct.
really like surfy, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Really
It's
wavy.
there are surfers. There are lots of surfers. Um,
I
I
remember.
haven't quite managed to get myself on a board yet, but
But the
who
waves are
knows?
so
This
much
summer.
fun.
Oh, they're so much fun. I love it. I love it. It's exhilarating.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
you feel like a bit like a child, don't you, when you've had a rough around in the
Yeah,
surf.
totally.
Wonderful.
I love it. Oh, I'm so pleased. So if someone's listening and they're inspired by you making this move with the whole family, which I am sure many will be inspired, as am I, like if I would imagine there'd be some doubts that come up, but what is the advice that you would give to someone now you're the other side of it and you're kind of settling back down, but you kind of still on that riding on the high of having done this with your life for yourselves? What would you say to them?
I think it's simpler than you think. Um, I think once you have the idea, you get your head around the idea, the rest just follows. If it feels right, you can definitely do it. And I think there've been so many positives from a personal perspective and from a family perspective. It's not been easy, but it didn't matter that it wasn't easy because actually we had the time,
Mm.
which is the luxury bit, we had the time to actually focus ourselves for once on our family and what we really wanted or needed to change, to be closer to where we want to be. So yeah, I think it's a wonderful thing to be able to do, and it takes courage, but it makes it worth it at the same time.
Mm. Completely. And just talking about time, right? Time is the one resource we ain't gonna get back.
Yep.
And you can get a job back, you can get money back, you can get all the things back, but that time is so precious, especially when you've got young ones. I would imagine that it's just wonderful that you grabbed it with two hands and just gone, sod it. Let's do it. Let's do it. I love that. What's the highlight from your trip, would you say? Have you got one or two highlights?
Um, so I'd say the highlight for me absolutely was, I guess, indulging in my passion for being in the sea and snorkeling and seeing my kids snorkel. I mean,
Yeah.
that was just it was a wonderful thing, to just see their evolution and these experiences. And I swam with whale sharks in Indonesia, which was
Good.
an amazing experience.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, I don't know if
it's
I'm
so
ready
humbling.
for
Yeah, it's humbling to be in nature and to see
that.
animals like that. So that was the actual trip experience. For me, getting to really know my kids and my relationships this year has been, I think, invaluable. And I just think we just didn't have the time before or the focus to actually see and understand these little people. And that probably added a bit to the stress of life, but actually, we know them in a different way now, and we understand their little personalities, and and I think it's helping us be better parents and know our little family better.
It's so beautiful. I love that.
It sounds cheesy, but
No, it doesn't at
yeah,
all.
it's yeah.
It doesn't. And
And
I,
I think
oh, go on.
so I was going to say just the other thing of actually just letting go of letting go of everything has given us the space to actually just have a bit of clarity looking forwards and to decide to just be a bit more purposeful with the life that we're living, I guess.
Mm,
Um, Not to say it's any I've got to still now get back into the working world. And that's a challenge to come for me. I'm in the midst of that now. But as you said, to approach it with a different mindset is a wonderful thing.
yeah. I think this is the thing, right? It's, I don't know if you sat to reflect on like what qualities can you see have like just been amplified in yourself because you see yourself, not just your kids, but you see yourself more because you've had that time that you've taken to really deeply be with yourself. Because we don't do that either, do we? When we're in the rat race, we are like, we're all up in our heads and we're, yeah, anywhere but present, I think, a lot of the time. And that's no criticism of anyone because that that's what life does when we get swept away with it. But yeah, if you like, I think really take that time to just go, who, like, how am I a different, better person, if you want to put it that way? But like, what's amplified in me because I can see it more clearly now, because they're the skills that you really get to talk about, having discovered on this time out, right? That you might not have necessarily discovered before. So I think that's a really beautiful positioning to have when you're starting to speak to prospectful employers. Um, and I was going to ask you something else as well. There was something else. That's it. So if we're to catch up again in like 18 months time and you're, 18 months into a new role, what's one thing that you want to hold on to, one life lesson that you want to hold on to and take into that next working kind of stage of a life?
That's a really difficult question, Em, isn't it?
You don't actually have to answer it today, actually. If it's not coming to you, I'd love for
No.
you to think on it and let me know. But
You know what I think it would be, is the self-care piece. So I think I have taken a huge amount away personally in terms of being brave enough to actually choose to follow what's going to put me in a better
Mm.
place, a better space of well-being. Um, I think it's actually making sure that I maintain that. So I do go to the sea and I do swim in the sea. Um, I exercise a couple of times a week because I know those are the things that make me feel better, and I know I want to go into work and achieve, but I'll only do that well if I'm feeling like I am now by taking that time.
Yeah, nice. I hope you hold on to that. If you need a reminder, you can come back to this
I
episode.
may well do.
Are there any kind of final thoughts that you thought you wanted to like share, or like little wisdom nuggets that you kind of come across that feel relevant to anyone sitting there listening, going, "Oh, could I? Should I? Can I?"
I I think it's that I think it's helped by people like you when you take that time to sit back and reflect. And I know I heard lots of people talk about the revolution process, where actually taking that afternoon to sit down with yourself and actually ask yourself some of those questions, um, so that you can arrive at that point where you could potentially make a decision to up sticks and go travel around the world, or pick up a hobby, or maybe think about what work you might like to do. I think it's actually giving yourself that time to do that. Because that's how I've arrived where I am now. And I'm certainly not there yet. And I need to be able to feel this way as I transition back into work. But yeah, I think just that time is incredible. As you
Yeah,
said, never lost.
yeah, exactly. And it's a common theme that has come up through
Mm.
this whole conversation, right? It's like that time is like the most precious commodity. You can't get it back. Like, especially as we get older, it's kind of like, oh God, I just hit 45 and I'm like, oh God, like if I expect to live till 90, I'm like, I am actually officially halfway. Like, it's crazy. So it does sort of force us to stop and go, God, what am I doing with my life? But we also don't have to get to that stage. We get to reflect often. Like, as it was my birthday at the weekend, I a friend asked me, what was like your most precious memory from last year, from the last kind of 365 days around the sun. And I was like, oh, it's a really nice time to actually do that reflection as well, not just the end of the year or the end of a 4-year leap year or whatever, but actually just to go, yeah, what was it? And I actually had to sit and think and really reflect myself. And for me, just to share it as we're talking about it was like my trip to Wales when we first went away in the van. It was beautiful weather. We thought we could have been abroad, and we spent the whole week at the beach, in and out of the water in Wales, which never happens. We were just like, we were like pigs in shit because we were outdoors all the time, and we were like, this is the life we've created for ourselves. So yes, do it, and do it often. Reflect, ask yourself, what do you want? Was it what's the film? Is it The Notebook? What do you want? What do you want? Like, because
And
if you ask
realizing
yourself,
you're not going to get it unless you know what you want and then you go for it. So
exactly, yes. So take that
it's
pause.
not going
I
to
love
arrive on your lap. So,
exactly. But if you find that moment of like space, take that moment of time to create some space, it might actually just come to you.
yeah.
It might be like that really strong fuck it voice that says, nah, something's got to change. Or it might be really subtle. Like for me, it's sometimes it's a subtle, let's go to the beach today, or let's go to the woods. I literally just get a subtle nudge of what I want to do. And I check in with myself. What do we want to do right now? And I have the privilege, the luxury to do that, but I have created the ability to do that, and that is what is available when
And
we.
I think it's trusting that you can do it. So I think once you open your mind to the possibility, um, actually, if you think about what you achieve all day, every day at work or at home,
Mm,
we're pretty capable people. You're just applying that to a different circumstance. Of course, you're going to be okay and you're going to do well in it.
yeah. Mm. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing all the deets. It's so good to hear. Thank you for your wisdom as well. I love just love hearing like how you just like taken so much from it as well. It's not just been like a extended holiday. It's like really has been a grounding into family life and what you want for moving forward. So yay you. And I wish you
Then.
all the luck with your job search. I'm sure it'll
Thank you.
go great. Please do keep me posted. Please do stay tuned to the show as well. And yeah, it's been great catching up.
It's been wonderful to relive it, and I look forward to the next catch up.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, thanks, Kel. And thanks everyone for listening. And we'll see you next week. Take care.